Hey Carol, how's it going?
Good, Rajiv. Glad to be here.
Wonderful to have you. Yeah, it's been a while. I think we first crossed paths about a decade ago when we were both mentors at an accelerator, V Venture, wasn't it? Uh,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
you, me, and a few other folks. So it was fun times. And then we kind of lost touch, but it was wonderful to see you. Was it like 6 months ago at Full Sail for our panel together on AI? And we got to talking, and I was like, man, you're doing some really cool stuff with AI in the marketing space and stitching together your own workflows. And like, yeah, that's a space I'd love to get my audience familiar with too. So thank you for making some
Yeah.
time. I'm sure everybody can benefit from your knowledge there.
Yeah, well, likewise, I was excited to see what the products you've been working on with AI. As we're going to talk about AI, is still relatively new. So it is exciting to meet other people who are kind of like getting their hands into it and kind of figuring out what are the best use cases for it and what's going to make sense from a business perspective to integrate AI into whether it's marketing, product, customer service, operations, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. These are phenomenal times. And I was just at San Francisco last week, and everybody's calling it the super cycle, right? It's
Hmm.
once in a generation or two that this kind of disruption happens. But what I feel is the craziest part of this particular cycle is the speed, right? It's just unbelievable speed at which AI is getting capitalized to progress R&D, to in terms of adoption, in terms of ROI that you're already seeing within a very short period of it launching. So tell me about your journey. Like, how did you get into it? What inspired you? Well, actually, first, why don't
Yeah.
we back up a little bit and talk about your background and what all the things that you do.
Sure. So currently, I run a business called Speaking Your Brand. And ironically enough, we are a very high touch, a very human oriented business. We work with our clients on public speaking and thought leadership. So they're going out into the world, business lunches, conferences, keynotes, TED Talks, also virtual presentations, and delivering their message, whether it's for lead generation or getting paid directly to speak. And so that is the service that we offer. And we work very closely with our clients to do that. But before I started speaking your brand 10 years ago, I was a software developer and I had started and ran two technology businesses. So I started this in the early 2000s when the internet was the new thing that was coming along. And so we did big projects for companies like Office Depot and Lowe's, where literally they plucked us off the street and they're like, oh, web technology, go build these systems for us that we're going to use in all of our stores nationwide, because it was that new, just like AI is nowadays, that they had to find people who understood where technology was going. So we did big projects like that. We also built custom solutions for political organizations and candidates. So I very deep into the software space, but then kind of got burnt out after doing it for about 10 or 12 years. So I switched to this very high touch, human facing business instead. But then when ChatGPT launched, the tech side of me just couldn't resist. I immediately got into it and started just figuring out all of the ways to integrate AI into what we were doing at Speaking Your Brand. I'm sure we'll talk about this kind of like my philosophy of how to think about AI and the potential that it can offer no matter what type of business that you have.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I don't see too many people go from software development to marketing and then to brand building, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty cool about your journey. And yes, obviously we both agree that, this is absolutely the right place to be at this point in time. So can you give us some examples of some of the things you do? Like what's a specific AI workflow or typical workflows that you work with that, has made a difference for you and for your clients?
Sure. So I think about how to use AI in these three different ways. The first is to supplement what I'm already doing, to kind of like optimize and supplement some of the things that we're doing in the business. The second thing is to think about how to democratize access to what we do. So because we're a very high touch service, we're also a premium service. And so what are ways that we can take all of the frameworks and processes we've built and developed over the years, but give that access to people in a lower priced way. So that's the second thing, is democratize access. And the third thing is to personalize at scale. I think that is a huge promise of AI, is to truly do personalization, whether it's lead nurturing or it's customer support. So I also have a podcast that I've been running for over 8 years, 428 episodes and counting. So a huge library of content that I have trained AI on using a RAG, retrieval augmented generation system. So now I have all of those podcast transcripts that either myself or my team or even clients or podcast listeners can access to find like quick information instead of having to go listen to a bunch of episodes. Of course, I highly encourage people to listen, but sometimes you just need a quick answer. But it's my IP that is that it's providing the answer, not a generic ChatGPT answer that someone would get if they ask, what should I charge to speak, or how do I start charging to speak, or how do I think about developing my thought leadership idea? So podcast content for sure, building the rag, and then also just podcast production. So show notes, email newsletters, podcast graphics, like putting this all into a workflow automation. So literally I dump the audio file into a Google Drive folder, and then that kicks off the whole automation system that then goes build all of these assets for that particular episode. So a lot of streamlining and optimizing for podcasts and marketing is the first thing that I started working on.
Gotcha. And tell me a little bit about your clients so that people can understand, who are you helping and in what way?
Yeah, so a lot of them are entrepreneurs. So they are out there wanting to use public speaking and thought leadership to build their business. So to track for leads and for clients, and really to kind of put themselves out there as that go-to expert, as the voice in their industry. So they're doing, again, those conference sessions, business presentations, keynotes, and so on. And then also professionals who work for a company, but they also they understand the importance of building their own thing, to have their own personal brand and have their own thought leadership, so that if they should decide to either go off on their own or go to another company, they can bring all of that with them as well.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the use case of how you're doing things internally within Speaking Your Brand. How does this show itself to the clients, and how do they access some of these AI services that you're doing? Or are you also helping them build their own workflows too?
Yes. Okay. So the answer is yes to both of those things. So especially for podcasters and content creators out there, because we have a number of clients who are those as well. So helping them build these AI workflows for their production and marketing side. And then the other thing is that second piece that I talked about as far as democratizing access. So we have what we call chat SYB, so chat speaking your brand instead of chat GPT, which is again taking all of our frameworks and processes and methodology and putting them into a system so that it helps the person build out what they're working on. So we do that one-on-one right now with clients, and again, very high touch way, which is we love it. It's very effective, but again, it's a higher price point. But then giving access to what we do in a way that more people can use that. So that right now is in prototype mode, and we'll sometime soon we'll be out releasing it for beta use with our clients.
Gotcha. Very cool. And how are you finding it so far? Like, have you seen changes in quality with the LLM disruptions that have happened in the last year? Have you added any, fine tuning or anything else that kind of helped you get to where you wanted to be?
Oh, for sure. So we started with a prototype way back in January of 2023. So,
Oh, wow.
ChatGPT launched November 30th, 2022. January, we built our first prototype, like January, February. And we knew we knew it was rudimentary, and we knew that's what to expect. We basically wanted to see kind of like, what could it do? And looking at ChatGPT, I think it was 3.5 at the time, and how much better even 4.0 is. It's got light years as far as the writing quality and the ideation and the ability to put things together. But then having the RAG, that's the fine tuning part. So giving it access to all of our content has what's made it such a big difference. So it's beyond just saying, well, write in this brand voice or make sure to mention this when you're giving a response. It looks first at all of our content base, like our knowledge base library, to answer the question. And then of course it takes what makes LLMs great with its ability to synthesize and output information.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Retrieval augmented generation is what we're using at AIR as well, our startup accelerator mobile app that we launched last year. And I think you can solve a lot of use cases, probably I'd
Yes.
say 80% of the use cases, without having to get into the weeds of the LLM, without having to do a private LLM
Right.
or to fine tune the model or any of that. Just using a vector database, RAG, and using, like you said, the LLM
Hmm.
for synthesis gets you a lot of the way there. It's a really
Hmm.
powerful process, and people really don't know the difference between going straight to an LLM versus going through a RAG, how much of a quality improvement you can get. So thank you for bringing it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
for
would say as a marketer, the name RAG is awful. Right? Like, right? It's like not like I don't know. These AI companies are really bad at naming things. GPT 3.5 and 4.0 and O2 and O3. Like we need some better names. So people say RAG, and I know that's the jargon, but I like to think of it as an AI knowledge, like a knowledge base for AI. And I think most people understand, like, yeah, I have a knowledge base in my business, and I think that's maybe we should kind of help people to understand it that better instead of saying brag.
yeah, you can tell this wasn't named by Apple.
Right.
They
No,
never be cut
yeah.
dead with stuff like that. They're like Yosemite and this and that, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
No, absolutely. Uh, Cool. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about, how you're kind of approaching this with entrepreneurs and what your experience has been. Like we're talking right now, it's May of 2025. And, like you said, AI has been around now for about in the current form since ChatGPT 3.5 is more than 2.5 years now. And there's still a lot of business owners, founders, entrepreneurs, consultants, freelancers that are still overwhelmed by tech, and they're dipping their toes in, but they don't know kind of where to go first. So do you have any recommendations for them, especially in the marketing space?
Yes. Well, I think, Rajiv, that's where those of us who have a tech background do have an advantage in it because AI feels very techy. And it's not that you have to be a data scientist or a LLM engineer to understand it, but I feel like you need to understand how to break things down into workflows. And if you've been a software developer, you kind of understand how you need to get from point A to point Z and how to write code to do that. And I feel like it's the same thing with AI, whether it's workflows or even now agents, which are much more sophisticated than just a regular workflow. But being able to just basically take a use case and then break it down into steps. So I think for those of you who are listening, who are business owners or marketers or who work in a certain aspect within a business, is think about something that you do on a regular basis and how if it's repetitive, if it's kind of the same steps you're doing over and over again, putting that into a list of steps, kind of like a standard operation procedure, which you may already have in your business, and then taking that list of steps, that process, and then thinking about, okay, how do I string these things together in a way for a workflow to be able to automate that, and then go find a tech consultant person like Rajiv or like me to say, okay, now here's my list of steps, here's the process, and we'll help you to interrogate, okay, which ones are missing, what needs to actually come first, or what is the end result, and then putting that together into a workflow. So I would say for business owners, understand the AI's capabilities enough, but also understand that you are good at what you do in your business. You don't have to go learn to be a technology expert to integrate AI, just like you don't have to be a web developer to have a website for your business, but you do need to know the questions to ask and what's possible.
Right, right. That is really important. And I think the really powerful thing for me when I first experienced AI, similar to you, is just how much time we used to spend individually on standard operating procedures, knowledge bases, best practices, tips and tricks. All of this stuff was just piling up all over the place. As a business owner, you want to, you want to try and get standardization. You want to prevent the same mistakes from happening again and again. And you've got all these documents, but nobody's going to read 100 documents and remember them, and when the right situation comes up, be able to implement the right solution. So just the basic idea of taking all your documents, which you've already spent so many countless hours building, and then exposing them through an LLM to ask questions and simply get a quick answer to what you're doing is so powerful. But then on top of that, if you layer in workflows like you're talking about, now we're really cooking, right? And that's where the real power comes, is you're following the steps that are clearly outlined for what you're trying to do. And I think that's super powerful. Do you find
Mm.
that folks are starting to explore the workflow based use cases now? Are they starting to dip their toes?
I would say, well, yes and no. I would say, for again, people who have a tech background, I think yes, like they're very much, into it, and they see the capabilities and they see the potential, and they also have a desire, I think, to see how software can help streamline and optimize and automate. Because like that's the way that we think about things. I think for a lot of people who, um, they feel like it's maybe a big lift, right? Because there's the upfront work, right? This is the case with everything. Like you have to kind of spend more hours to set things up in order to save time over the long term. So a lot of people like it's like, oh, I'll work on that later, or it takes too much time right now. But is actually, and I think this is maybe a takeaway too for business owners and for marketers and non-tech people, is that it's actually very doable and it's okay to start small. So when I started building workflows, they maybe only had 4 or 5 steps in them because I just wanted to see, okay, what could it do? Is it getting me the output that I want? And then as I saw that, then I started getting more excited to say, oh, I can add this step to it. Or now I can create this other workflow that will hand off from this one to this one and continue to build out more of those different steps of the process. So even just starting really small with something relatively simple, I think can give you an idea of what could come next.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right about that. There is something about the software engineering mindset where, we're used to building things with MVP version 1, then version 2,
Right.
3. And a lot of folks aren't that familiar with it, especially that process if you're not already in the software space. But then again, there's a lot of people who've tried things and are horrified with the results, right? And then there's a ton of mistakes that people make in terms of having poorly crafted prompts, or not providing enough context, and then it
Mhm.
gives them a generic answer or something that was hallucination, right?
Right.
And they're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. So have you seen like a lot of issues with, what are some of the like big mistakes that people make with AI?
I feel like it's yeah, they assume because it didn't work once or something kind of just didn't get them what they wanted one time, then to kind of like throw the whole thing out. And I liken it to imagine you go to a restaurant and you have a meal and the meal is not that great. Are you going to swear off that type of food forever? Like never eat a salad again because you had a bad salad at one restaurant? No. Like you're gonna have to just find the ways that make it work for you. And also back to my earlier point about working with someone like you, Rajiv, who has this technical knowledge and has the experience. Because just like, again, I'm going back to my web developer days when I started, there were lots of people, people who were not professional web developers who made their own websites. And it may have served them just fine, but you could tell a difference between something that was meant to serve the business, right? To provide an ROI for the business versus a website that was just kind of like put up there because they didn't want to invest the time or the money to do it. No judgment on either one, but there is a difference between using technology to propel the business forward as an ROI and using it just as something like because you feel like you have to check a box.
Yeah, absolutely. The issues that people complain about now, and you and I know this because we've been doing it for a couple of years plus,
Mhm,
is most of these issues are addressable. Whether you choose to do it with RAG, or you choose to
mhm.
with human in the loop, or you choose to do a custom model, private LLM, or whatever the case may be. There's so many levers to pull now, and the technology as it stands in 2025 is nowhere near where people might have first tried it out 2 years.
Right.
It's head and shoulders different, and the feature sets that you have with that is different as well. So I really feel like people who have maybe sworn off it, having had their first bad salad, right? I mean, they really
Right.
have to go back and try a different salad. it,
Yes.
it's a very different salad right now.
Yeah, it's like people who tried ChatGPT in like January 2023, like the first like couple months it came out. Yeah, like it could write a song lyric or a Dr. Seuss poem or whatever. And it was kind of like a little gimmicky novelty thing. Oh my God. It is, I mean, amazing what it can do now.
Yeah, 100%. That's the other piece, right? It's not just about taking stuff that you've put in through your head, that you already put in your standard operating procedures or best practices, but it's about creating new stuff. Like, I'm really amazed every time I have a strategy conversation, or I'm trying to prepare a new pitch deck with AI. There's just the creativity and the new ideas that come in, right? Things that you may have thought of if you had like hours to think about every single thing, right? But if you're trying to do something fast, the productivity gain in terms of creativity is really immense for me. And
Mhm.
what about you? I'm sure you've seen tremendous use cases for creativity in your space because it's marketing, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, I use it as a thought partner, as a, business strategist, as a kind of a creative thought partner all of the time. And so I've gotten into the habit now where whenever I'm sitting down to do something, I always think, well, how could ChatGPT help me with this? Like, can it be a sounding board? Can it give me some ideas? Now, the thing, and people have talked about this quite a bit, is that ChatGPT especially is very sycophantic. It really wants to praise you and tell you how great your ideas are and how what a genius you are. And so you have to be mindful of that and ask it to poke holes, ask it to be critical, ask it to give you like tell me where this could be wrong because by kind of the way that it's been set, it wants to make you happy because Chat OpenAI figures you'll come back to use it more if it's praising you. But so you do have to be careful with that because unlike say like a human, like a business coach that you may have, or a strategist or a technology strategist who does know that they have to give you like poke holes in it or kind of think about, you know, things to mitigate or, you know, things that could go in one direction versus another. So you have to ask the AI to do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, it's different based on which LLM you use, right? So for
Hmm.
us, we've seen Claude is really head and shoulders above in terms of software code writing, right?
Hmm.
It just does it very, very well. And Perplexity does really good on deep research type questions, right? And ChatGPT is good, kind of like you talked about for the general purpose use cases. It's pretty good for a lot of different things. And there's others that are specialized in other areas too. From your experience, like how do you kind of compare? Because what we don't want to do in this world is to build infrastructure that is then going to be part of the core LLM, right? So you just built something that was going to be part of the core product in the future. So it's basically going faster than we are. So in
Hmm.
terms of balancing, I don't know if this is how you think about it, but tell me how you think about it. Is where do we spend our energy building workflows that will then be things that you own in terms of your business practices versus things that you rely on the LLM to figure out for you that you're just assuming that's going to be, kind of a commodity play. Like first of all, do you have a favorite LLM before I answer this
Hmm.
question?
So I do, for my own personal use, I do tend to use ChatGPT because I am just kind of using it for speaking proposals, business ideation, podcast show notes, things like that. So I find that's the one that works best for me. Plus now because it has context with all of the chat history that I've ever had with it, it knows speaking your brand really, really well. So I don't have to constantly remind it like what our mission is or what it is that we do. So that's really helpful. And then on the automation side, I do use OpenAI's API. So it is that version of ChatGPT that's in their API, kind of for the same reason for the writing, the synthesis and the writing quality. But to your point, this is why I like the automation workflows. So I use make.com, N8N, and Zapier. So people are probably familiar with Zapier. They've been around a long time. Make.com and N8N are relatively newer, and they do have a lot of nice modules that you can create for these different automations. And what's nice about it is that even though I'm using OpenAI's API module to say, take my audio of my podcast and write the show notes and email newsletter and so on, I could just drop that module out and replace it with Anthropic or replace it with Gemini or replace it with an open source AI model instead. And I'm not having to build the whole thing over again. And I don't have to go in and kind of, switch out tons of lines of code, even though, of course, Claude could help with that nowadays. But so that way I'm not reliant or I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket with one particular LLM.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of competition too with AI LLMs, and we've experienced the same thing. And actually, I give my team credit for that because we started out day one assuming that there was going to be the LLM wars.
Hmm.
We'd always loosely coupled ourselves with the LLM so we can swap out any LLM you want. And we've tried to keep the core business logic outside
Right.
of the agent. So you're not like creating custom agents on the back end, but using prompt generated agents.
Hmm.
So things like that for me, because there's a lot of risk here, right? There's risk that, we don't know how the market's moving extremely fast, like faster than anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. So kind of betting
Hmm.
on the future. And there's a lot of people who are sitting on the fence because they feel like, oh, if we do this now and it change, the market changes tomorrow, or the features that we're building here might be built-in features that come with an LLM in the future, right? So how are you kind of navigating that? For us, we really have to be careful about, what advice we give our clients and what their AI strategy should be in terms of building custom versus building open source tools or
Hmm.
using LLMs in general.
Yeah, yeah. This is a great question, Rajiv, and I think it's kind of going in with eyes wide open and knowing that this is not set in stone. This is not like traditional software development, which yeah, software development would change over time. New frameworks would come in, or kind of new tech, but there would still be a year's cycle. Like you had time to take your old code and put it to a new code base, even though that was a pain. But you had the time to do that. I feel like the nature of business, period, even just setting aside AI specifically, the nature of business now is constant change. It used to be, I think, that like companies on the S&P 500 would stay on there for several decades. Now, most of them stay on there for 7 years. Like we're going, so no matter what it is in your business, tariffs, the economy, right? Political changes, global
Right,
changes,
right.
travel changes, technology, AI, like always knowing that you have to stay nimble, you have to stay flexible, and you can't just set it and forget it. That's just not the way that business is run. And certainly with AI, then constantly knowing, okay, we're going to have to revisit this maybe every 3 to 6 months to see what is out there that's better, that could even help us reach our ROI or help our customers even more, and then knowing that those changes are going to be built in.
Yeah, yeah. You said it right. I mean, what is it that you can really say? I mean, forget about AI for that matter. Anything at all that you can say that you can reliably expect will be around in 2 to 3 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had institutions in government that are disappearing now, falling faster than flies here. But AI is just
Yeah.
another aspect of the economy that is undergoing massive transformations right now. And there's really
Mhm.
no way of saying. I mean, job security is out the window. What is the value of a college degree anymore? Is it blue collar or white collar? Because right now, blue collar
Right.
seems pretty good.
Yes, it does. Yes. Air conditioning technicians are very needed.
Right? I mean, you got 6-figure salaries you can make in the blue collar space now. So
Right.
it is an
Yeah.
interesting world. I mean, there's no way of saying what the future is, but uh,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, what I've been telling folks is there's just you don't have a choice, right?
Mm.
Yes, you could do something and it might not end up being the perfect thing, and you might have to tweak it 3 to 6 months from now, like you said. But what is the alternative?
Right.
Like, the worst thing you could do is sit on the sidelines
Yes.
and just wait for it all to play out. Because by the time it plays out, all the monopoly squares are gone. You've got no more room to grow. There's nothing else to stake your claim on, and whatever market share you have is probably gone, right? So if you don't move right now, you are putting yourself in a position of extreme risk. Actually, that's the worst position to be in. So it's better that you
Yes.
do something and mess up and learn from it rather than do nothing. So for me, I mean, that's just it's a hard concept because not everybody's wired like that, right? I mean, us in the software world, we're used to launching multiple products and
Mhm.
MVP version, version 2, version 3, and sometimes it doesn't work and you got to try something else and drop this feature, add that feature. But I never thought the day would come when that would be something that everybody in the world would have to learn. And because it's not
Right.
just about software, it's about businesses of any kind. It's a really disruptive space and it's moving quickly, but I don't think we have a choice. And that's never been a situation that rank like regular people who are not in software we're used to that kind of speed of cycles and changes. And people in government, right, they never experienced any kind of major disruptions like we're experiencing right now. And it's not just us, it's everybody across the world, right?
Mhm.
So from that point of view, I think there are some real concerns to be had, because I mean, we're talking here and we're kind of, if you want to call it, AI experts at this time, right? We're looking at the state of the art as it stands today. But there are legitimate concerns about where does this train end up, right?
Yeah.
Where does it go, and what does the future look like? And there's valid concerns whether you and I will even need a job or have a job in the AI space if we hit AGI, because then it's all bets are off at that point. But what concerns do you have about AI?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've definitely had those, 3 a.m. wake ups with existential dread right over the past 2.5 years because, we don't really know where this is going to go. So I just kind of stay focused on like the next, couple of months and kind of figure, okay, how can I leverage this for my business, for my clients, for my podcast listeners, for my audience, because ultimately I want them to achieve what they want to achieve for themselves and their business and in their, their thought leadership and their personal brand. So how can I use AI to help make that possible for them. So that's how I like to stay focused. And then also, how can I use AI within my business and my team so that we can do more of the fun, creative things that we like to do, like in-person workshops where we, bring a group of people together and we, practice speaking and we have fun and we do improv exercises, the human things that we like to do so that I can offload the other stuff to AI to have it work on those things, which is really good at doing and kind of gets monotonous and boring for humans to do. So I like to think about how is AI serving us? How can it help us live better lives for ourselves personally and for our businesses and stay focused on that. As far as like AI, yeah, there's lots of concerns. Privacy, copyright, right? Intellectual property, job security, even job satisfaction. How because we want AI to work well with us. We don't want to feel like AI is doing all the things that we used to like to do. And I know, so I encourage those of you listening who are business owners or who are, supervising teams to have conversations because it really is individual use to figure out how is AI going to be best for that person and that person's role. How can they use AI to do more of the things they like to do and less of the things that they don't like to do. And I really think that's why I want so many people to understand the potential of AI because we all need to be part of the conversations that are happening, whether it's in our workplace, in our communities, in our schools, and in our government. And we can't afford to just be like, oh, I don't understand AI. That's someone else's problem. No, it's all of us. We all have to collectively figure out what AI is, how AI is going to reshape everything that we want to do and make sure that we have a voice in that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I really think about it as AI is, and a lot of people are comparing it, but it's a very valid comparison in my book. Is AI is like the internet, right? There was a time when you would say I can use Internet Explorer and I know how to use Microsoft Office. That was a big achievement, right? I think now nobody puts that on their resume because they just understand
Right.
every human in the white collar space knows how to do that, right? And I think that's where we are with AI, except that of course it's going much faster than the previous cycles, but it's the same concept. Like if you don't know AI, your ability to be productive is severely hampered, right? And I mean, if you don't know Microsoft Office and you're going to go find a job today, you're not going to find a job. And I think that's where it's going to be. Like or two is everybody who doesn't know how to use AI better learn how to use AI in some way. And of course, there's some responsibility on the businesses themselves to AI enable their employees, but individuals have to also take the effort to understand how AI, what use cases work well, what use cases don't work so well, and how to maximize their productivity. But from your point of view, right? Where do you feel we are in the AI hype cycle, right?
Yeah.
So the hype cycle goes up and then it
Yeah.
goes down, the valley of despair, and then it kind of evens out and gets reasonable. Like, where do you
Yeah.
feel we are right now?
Yeah, I think it depends on the industry. I was talking to someone last week who works in the K through 12 education space as a consultant, and she talks quite a bit about AI to her clients and her audience. And she said that currently educators are in the trough of disillusionment. So they
Okay.
were right. At first, ChatGPT came out and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this going to do to education? And then they got excited about it, like potential capabilities. How can we do this? And now she said a lot of them are in the trough of disillusionment. I think a lot of it is because it's hard to reorient education in this short a period of time. What is education for, right? What are students going to learn? How are they going to learn? What are right? There's so much. So I think for them, that's it. For tech people, I think we are definitely still in the excitement stage of like, wow, look at all these things
Yeah.
it could do. What
Let,
else
let
is
me
possible? Yeah, go ahead.
let me double tap
Yeah,
on the first one. So you said
yeah,
they're in the trough of disillusionment. Was that
yeah.
because they're not sure how quickly to implement it, or because the results were not satisfactory, or both?
I feel like they just think that students are using AI so much, even when they're directed not to, or directed to use it in these ways, but not for everything. Students just, not all students, but a lot of students just want to find the quickest path to get stuff done or to get a grade or what have you. So I think that they're having that existential moment of what is education for now and how can we best serve our students? And I don't know if anyone's figured it out yet. I don't know if it's even figure outable at this point.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a
Yeah.
moving horizon every day for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, there's so many
Yeah.
things. I think they're Okay, so I'll tell you what I heard
Yeah.
and how much I buy into it when I went to San Francisco, right? Every VC there was talking about the AI super cycle, and they all have an AI specific focus and all of that. And one of the things they said was, if you're giving me a pitch today, you either are an AI first company that is like core product is built on AI,
Hmm.
or you've got some kind of AI enablement that's taking your core product and AI enabling it. Or if you don't have AI at all, you better have a damn good reason why you don't have anything to say about AI in this day and age, right? So 2025, that's possible, right? Some products may not need AI. I can't think of any off the top, but assuming that such a product exists, you better have a good story about why AI doesn't fit into your model, given where we are. So I think from a VC perspective,
Hmm.
they're all in on AI. All the startups I heard pitch were all AI related. So from the perspective of how this is going to play out in the market, there's
Yeah.
80,000 AI startups that are, as of this was as of Q4 of last year. So it's probably over six figures now across the world, right? And they're all building vertical specific, integrated, B2B, B2C, different apps. So I would imagine that a lot of the ed tech related explorations that you're looking at, my prognosis, given what I know so far, would be that they're probably going to build, like what was it called? The Canvas, the tools that they use for curriculum and content
Hmm.
and everything like that. So they're going to have new versions of that, or the tools have to AI enable themselves, is kind of what's going to happen. So it's
Yes.
too much to expect that these companies will these educational institutions will have to figure out AI on their own. It's more likely that their vendors have to figure it out and bring it to them in an
Yes.
integrated way.
Yeah, I think that's been the challenge, especially well for really all industries, but education especially is that every single individual teacher and administrator was kind of just left to figure it out on their own. A lot of
Right.
times, like, what tools should I use? What tools are my students using? What is the best use case for this? How do I, reorient it? And I think, but if we take it out of education and just think about businesses in general, we're all kind of in that boat.
It is.
What AI is best for me? Which tools? Which workflows, which part of my business should I experiment with first? What is the outcome that I could reasonably expect to get from it? So I think that's what makes it exciting is that I'm like an inveterate learner. I love to learn new things. So for me, this is kind of like, okay, I'm excited to see what is next. And we didn't really get a chance to touch on AI agents yet, which are different than workflows. But agents are really cool because they can determine what workflow to call.
Right.
Based on what input it gets, then it knows like I'm going to send it to this agent or I'm going to send it to this workflow or I'm going to do this response. So it's really like having an extra employee or an assistant to kind of do this work and route it for you. And so that's something so those are things that we're starting to build internally as well.
Yeah, 100%. That is
Yeah.
really a super exciting piece where now you're having this agentic workflows, but also agent to agent communication that, Google's
Yes.
working on a protocol for that, where one agent can call another agent and you can daisy chain different agents based on, a core agent that's beginning that process out. And then on top of
Yeah.
that, you've got now just recently, I heard that there's now broad adoption for MCP architecture. Uh, I forget the full form, model control something
Mhm.
protocol, model control protocol, I think is what it's called, but where agents can call APIs directly. So if you
Yes.
label the APIs in a certain way, an agent can put in a record into Salesforce, and you don't need to teach it specifically what to do. You just offer the API, and if it's given the permissions, it can go create a record in Salesforce, or it can, launch a Zapier workflow or whatever it is if you set it up in the MCP architecture. I think that's really powerful
Mhm.
because think about it. I mean, this stuff used to take weeks and months to do integrations. And now, if somebody's offering up an MCP architecture, you can plug it in 5 minutes and have this new superpower unlocked immediately.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
ridiculous. I mean, how much power this is going to unleash. On the flip side, though, I feel like this is very much going to be a winner take all market.
Mhm.
That's,
Mhm.
that's my sense for this anyway, is that there's going to be one or two LLMs that win. There's going to be one or two B2B apps that win because you can scale so quickly, right? It's not like you have to have 5, 6 different competitors. You will generally gravitate to one or two of the incumbents, which is of course scary. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
it right now it's a total gold rush. And going back to
Yeah.
the hype cycle thing, right? it's really hard. I mean, I asked you the question because I don't have an answer to it on where we are in the hype cycle. Like, I feel like we're still going up. The hype cycle hasn't peaked yet. I feel that
Yeah.
there's still a lot more that is possible to left to be unlocked from the AI capabilities. And it's not like any other technology, right? I mean, generally people compare this stuff to like, oh yeah, we saw this whole thing play out with blockchain, and we saw this
Yeah.
play out with metaverse, and all this stuff. Not the same thing, right? Every technology
Right.
has its own path, and every technology has its own adoption curve. And AI by far was the fastest adopted
Yes.
technology in human history. So no, this is not like, no, one of these things is not like the other things, right?
Right.
And that's really
Yeah.
something most people don't really grasp is, this is not just a toy, it's not just cool and interesting, but it is something that's going to impact at all levels of society. And
Yeah.
yeah, what
Yeah.
do you think? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like we are plateauing a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't matter because the quality is still already good enough to make a massive impact. So for me, honestly, I'd rather it does plateau because
Right.
it's
We need time to catch up a little bit, like, and just use what's available right now.
we need time to breathe. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, we're at the forefront here trying to keep up with this stuff, and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I can't imagine what other people are going through. I just hope it does plateau. Honestly, it's already good enough for me. It doesn't need to get a whole lot better. Take your time, open AI, take your time, Google. Let's just give us a moment to breathe here.
I know it's funny because like we adapt so quickly. We're like, oh, I wish, AI could do this, this, and this. And we think back to 3 years ago, none of this existed. And if just like you said, just stopping and being able to use what we have right now, even if it stopped for the next 5 or 10 years, we could still do so much with it that we've only scratched the surface with. So, and to your point about kind of like a winner take all marketplace or, economy, and I think what you said is important is that that's why for businesses, they need to start integrating and experimenting with AI now and not wait for it to be perfect or wait for like whatever they think that they're waiting for more clarity regarding what tool to use. Start integrating and start experimenting because your competitors are, and whether they're going to be able to be more profitable with their operations or with their customer service or with their product development or with their marketing. There's a lot of gains to be made by using AI. And so it's best to just go ahead and kind of dive in and get started, see what's working well and what's not, and then like MVP it, keep iterating.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Well, we're almost
Yeah.
at time here, Carol, but before I let you go, what else is happening that's cool that you want the audience to know? And do you have any asks, anything that you wanted to share with the audience? Like, are you hiring? Do you have anything coming
Yeah.
out that we should look out for?
Yeah, so I have quite a number of speaking engagements coming up related to AI automation workflows and agents and how we're using it here at Speaking Your Brand. So if anyone's looking for, a presentation about that, either for internally for your workplace, your teams, or for a group or a conference or an event that you host, happy to do that. I'm a great public speaker because this is what I do in my business for a living. And then the other thing is that if you enjoy listening to podcasts, you're welcome to check out my podcast called Speaking Your Brand and connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just do a search for Carol Cox speaker or Carol Cox Speaking Your Brand, and you'll find me there.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carol. Yeah, this is so exciting. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm not in the marketing space. I'm more on the deep tech side, but it's wonderful to see all the use cases that are being unlocked in that space. And hopefully the focus that you're bringing to helping customers move to applying AI in the marketing side is going to
Mhm.
unlock huge amounts of value for them as well. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes, and appreciate
Yeah.
everything that you do.
Thank you, Rajiv. It was so good to be here.
Have a great one. Take care. Thanks.